Izzy has landed 13 knockdowns, which ties him for first of all time in the middleweight class. His average fight time is 17 minutes and 19 seconds, which is the longest among all UFC middleweights. He has one of the highest significant strike defenses at around 60%, which put simply means that almost half of his opponent's best shots never touch him. It's already clear that Israel Adesanya has built his career on precision, timing, and dominance inside the cage. But are these numbers alone enough to back him up as one of UFC's greatest? To answer this question, we will work through each of our 5 athlete categories to ultimately score Izzy out of 10 and see where he lands on the Athletica scoreboard. And don't forget to strike that subscribe button so we can keep scoring athletes. Izzy is a pure striker, one of the cleanest distance fighters the UFC has ever seen. He doesn't wrestle much and he doesn't grapple much, but when it comes to kickboxing and MMA, he is claimed to be one of the best. Looking at his stats though, interestingly, he doesn't really come out right on top of the food chain. Let's start with his offense first. He lands 4.02 significant strikes per minute, which is more than Anderson Silva's 3.07 and much higher than the average of 2.9, but it's lower than everyone else we compared him to here. His striking accuracy as well sits at 48%, which again is higher than average, but lower than almost everyone here, being about 14% less accurate than some elite numbers like Anderson Silva. Okay, so look, Izzy's offensive stats here might not align him with some of the best we have seen, but overall, they're definitely up there at the tail end of the elite stats. Another offensive point here is his takedown accuracy, which sits at 11%, which is honestly just plain bad, even when considered against the average, and especially bad when considered against the others here. He also offers nothing offensively on the ground, averaging just 0.05 takedowns per 15 minutes. But in saying that, Izzy has always been striker focused, so when we look defensively here, we can see that his takedown defense is actually quite high, showing that he knows his strength lies in striking, so he has clearly trained himself to try and keep the fight within his area of expertise. Looking deeper into his defense, we can see that while he has a high takedown defense, his strike defense is actually on the lower end at about 55%. This is not a bad number, and it's very clear that Izzy is not well-rounded across everything, but he's very good at focusing on his strengths. Overall, this is very interesting. Adesanya is often defined as one of the best pure strikers in UFC history, and I think he definitely is up there. But looking at his striking stats alone, he's beaten out by almost everyone else we looked at. Then when we looked into his other forms of offense, they are not that great, and his defense is average at best. But he has won a lot. He holds the equal first UFC middleweight record in knockdowns landed. So despite what the pure technical numbers might show, he is clearly very capable of using his strength to his advantage so that he can win, and win a lot. He scores an 8.5 here. Izzy averages over 17 minutes per fight, longer than the UFC average of 11 minutes, proving he's built for 5-round wars. Of those fights that have gone over 17 minutes, he has won 6 and lost 4, giving him a 60% win rate here. This means on average, he is the one likely to come out on top in extended fights. And when you watch his fights, you can clearly see that he is rarely gassed in these extended battles. This just shows his elite endurance, and Izzy knows that this is one of his strengths, as he has a lot of long fights, most likely pushing them out on purpose. Also, he has shown in numerous fights that he can throw around 8 strikes per minute for longer than 15 minutes, which is one of the highest numbers in UFC, showing his exceptional cardio. When I look at his punching speed, Izzy is also quite above the average UFC fighter. While not the fastest puncher, he is definitely up there. I used his punch speed alongside known Power Cube punch strength benchmarks to work out his overall punch strength. Here we can see that Izzy is actually quite weak, but we did compare him to some heavy hitters. Taking a step back here, a rough middleweight average was calculated to be around 32,000 units, but even against this average, Izzy actually isn't particularly strong. So in summary, Izzy has incredible endurance, a high punch speed, and the fitness to strike often. By combining these elements, he generates a fighting style that no single power metric can fully match. But he is still not the most complete UFC fighter in this element. He scores a 7 here. Dodging punches and kicks at full speed in the chaos of a UFC fight takes laser-sharp focus and split-second reactions. Izzy takes about 3.2 strikes per minute, which in simple terms means he is hard to hit. Now that's better than the average fighter, but here's the catch. Compared to some of the others here, he's still actually leaving quite a bit more room for opponents to land hits. To really put his mental game under examination though, I looked at how he performs under the highest pressure scenarios, UFC title fights. Izzy has been in 11 UFC title fights, winning 8 of them. This is incredible and puts him up there in the top 10 list of all time here. Keep in mind though, this gives Izzy a title fight win percentage of 73%, which is amazing, but there are a few fighters here with better numbers than this and have fought more title fights, such as Anderson Silva at 85% and John Jones at 100%. But those are absolute elite numbers. In the heat of the moment, it's clear that Izzy can fight. Now here's something else that's interesting. Izzy's rematch record. He's had 3 rematches in the UFC, and he's won all 3. The biggest one, his revenge knockout of Alex Pereira, just months after Pereira had put him out cold. That says everything about Adesanya's mentality. He doesn't let the past shake him. Whether it's coming off a big win or a tough loss, Izzy maintained laser focus in these moments. On the flip side though, Izzy still has more losses and less comebacks than other elite UFC fighters I compared him to. For example, fights like the Strickland loss show moments where he can get stuck, mentally outmaneuvered and unable to adjust mid-fight. Izzy is a showman. He thrives under pressure when the lights are brightest, but when things don't go his way, he sometimes struggles to flip the switch. He is clutch in rematches, but vulnerable in fights where the rhythm never comes. But I am nitpicking a bit here. Overall, he scores an 8.5. Izzy debuted in the UFC in 2018 and went on an undefeated run. From 2018 to 2022, he was untouchable, holding the middleweight belt for years and racking up 5 title defenses, a streak that puts him right alongside Usman but significantly behind Silva's legendary 10 defenses. I looked at a few UFC fighters here, considering their win rates, title defenses, and win streaks to define an approximate number of years that they would have been considered elite. Here we can see Izzy sits at an amazing 7 years of elite performance, but almost everyone else here beats him out. I just wanted to flag though that Izzy's 9-win streak is the equal 8th longest UFC win streak of all time. Before we score Izzy though, I also wanted to flag his performance in recent fights. In his last 5 fights, he has lost 3, which is not great, but nor is it a collapse. However, it's definitely a step down from the dominance he once had. Okay, so look, Izzy's performance overall is top tier. He will easily be remembered as one of the best middleweight fighters ever, but this sport has just got so much talent that has withstood the test of time, and Izzy is not quite there in direct comparison. He scores an 8. Finally, let's talk about his legacy. To date, Adesanya has been a 2-time UFC middleweight champion. He has defended the middleweight belt 5 times. He has landed 13 knockdowns, tying him for number 1 of all time at the middleweight class. And he also has one of the greatest revenge stories in UFC history. After being KO'd by Pereira in 2022, he shocked the world by knocking out Pereira cold in April 2023. Izzy's triumphs are undeniable. Sure, his legacy might not yet reach the mythical heights of someone like Anderson Silva, but make no mistake, whether you see him as overrated or one of the greatest, Adesanya has already carved his name in the UFC history books. He scores an 8 here. So from a blistering 9-fight UFC win streak to becoming a 2-time middleweight champion to delivering some of the most iconic moments in recent UFC history, Izzy has already cemented himself as one of the most influential fighters of his generation. His iconic rematch record, his knockdown numbers, and his style has made him a global star. But the numbers show that he has always been behind most of the other greats in the sport. And as the years go on, we're starting to see more cracks all around, which remind us that even the sharpest strikers can't stay untouchable forever. He's not Anderson Silva and he's not John Jones, but still, love him or doubt him, Izzy's legacy is locked in. At the end of the day, the Last Stylebender will always be remembered as a fighter who changed what it means to be a middleweight champion in the UFC. So with all scores considered, this gives Izzy a total athlete score of 8, putting him here on the Athletica scoreboard. Anyways, if you're a fan of UFC, please check out my video on Ronda Rousey, which should pop up on the screen now. Or if you're a fan of any other athlete, please come check out my channel. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to kick that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell notification so we can keep scoring athletes. I'm also interested to hear your thoughts, so be sure to leave a comment as well. Anyways, thanks for watching team. Catch you at the next one.